Okay, I'm Naval Ravikant. I'm formerly an entrepreneur and currently an angel investor and co-author of Venture Hacks. I started my career out starting a couple of companies. The best known ones are opinions.com, which went public as part of shopping.com, vast.com, which is a big white label classified service that powers large parts of America Online, Kelley Blue Book, VHIX, Yahoo Travel, and so forth. And most recently, I've been co-authoring a product called Venture Hacks, which is the second largest venture-related blog on the web, and launched a product called Angel List, which connects entrepreneurs to angels online and helps them raise funding. I also have a small investment fund, and I've invested in dozens of companies, including Twitter, Discus, Docverse, Mixer Labs, Social Gold, and so forth. I think it requires very different emotional temperaments. To be an entrepreneur, you essentially have to be passionate, almost irrationally optimistic, highly committed to the single thing that you're focused on. And you have to basically break down doors and pull trains and do whatever it takes to get people to follow you in your vision. As a venture capitalist or as an investor or an angel, you have to be a little cynical, a little pessimistic, very rational, constantly reevaluating each opportunity, and be a little critical because fundamentally all day long you're getting sold by passionate entrepreneurs. And so it requires very different emotional temperaments. As an investor, you also have to be able to context switch very, very quickly because you're dealing with a large number of different things at any given time. As an entrepreneur, you have to be able to focus. Entrepreneur, you're relatively passionate and committed to what you're doing. As an investor, you have to be dispassionate because very often you're helping out with very hard problems. People don't call you with good news, they call you with the bad news. And you have to be able to work through that without that affecting your day. You also have different return cycles. Entrepreneurs may look for more constant feedback from their environment, whereas as an investor, your feedback cycles are very slow. You find out 10 years later if you were any good at what you're doing or not. I ignored it. It's the same one that everyone who's been in the business for a long time and has a lot of gray hairs tells you. And it's true in any business, by the way. You'll hear the same advice, whether it's Warren Buffett telling you about public investing or whether it's an experienced venture capitalist telling you about private investing or an older entrepreneur telling you about starting a company. And they'll all tell you it's the people, stupid. And everybody goes, uh-huh, they nod, and they don't really understand what that means. And you figure that out 10 years later once you've worked with enough of the wrong people. So what I usually say is that you should find a great partner no matter what it is that you're doing. And you should look for someone who is very high intelligence, very high energy, and very high integrity. And you need all three of those, and you can't compromise on any one of them. Otherwise, you'll end up with either someone who's not smart, which does you no good, or someone who's not hardworking, which also does you no good, or the worst case is you end up with a smart, hardworking crook who ends up working against your interests. And integrity is something that takes a lot of time spent with someone to figure out. I think it's more important than people who are outside of Silicon Valley really realize. People who are in Silicon Valley realize it, and of course they have a commitment bias, so you have to discount a little bit of what they say. But I learned this the hard way. I started out in Boston. It was very hard to do a technology company there because their definition of technology was a little different. It was a little more backwards looking. But the bigger issue was just that moving out here, there are the obvious things. Yes, there are universities here. Yes, all the other tech entrepreneurs are here. But there are non-obvious things also that you realize very quickly. All your partners are here, and most networking and partnerships happen serendipitously, not by design. People here are always using the latest and greatest gadgets. You can see what's going to be mainstream a year or two from now by seeing what's going on here. Obviously, the investors are here, so it's easier to raise money here. But it's also just, it's in the air, it's in the water. I think you kind of have to be here. I've tried outside. My last company, Vast, has 100 people overseas, and we built a great team there, but it took us a year longer, and we lost a lot of time doing it. Especially, I think, when you look at consumer web businesses, it's ultra important. The reason is consumer web businesses are winner-take-all businesses for the most part. There's only room for one Twitter and one Facebook and one eBay and one Google. And so if you are second place, you lose out big time. So you need every possible advantage you can get. And if there's a checklist of 10, you might say, well, being in Silicon Valley is only one of 10. It's not the most important thing. But if you want to win, it needs all 10. You could succeed being outside of Silicon Valley. I think there is a thriving scene now in New York. There's a smaller one in Boston. There's opportunities in Seattle and Austin. But the reality is, as soon as you get big and you go for the gold, you're probably going to end up moving your company out here. When an entrepreneur shows you their product, you're not evaluating the product so much as you're evaluating it as a resume for the person. What are they capable of? You want to see how much they've actually done as opposed to how much they talk about. Silicon Valley, like any magnet place like Hollywood or New York, will attract a lot of very good talkers, and you have to separate them out from the doers. And the way you do that is by looking at what they've built and how much they've managed to accomplish with very little resources. So on the people side, it's essentially just spending time with them and trying to get a sense of, are these good people? Do they work really hard? Are they very smart and thoughtful? And are they capable of accomplishing things on their own? I think you have to just fundamentally understand that their time is being assaulted from all directions. And it's not just investors, it's true in any buy-side industry. If you're a large buyer for a big Fortune 500 company, salespeople are calling you all day. So it's the same techniques that you use to approach any large buyer. And what you basically have to do is you have to respect their time as much as you respect your own. So I would say don't insist on in-person meetings. Qualify the leads first. Send them something in writing. Get a very good introduction from someone who's trusted. Don't be secretive. Don't browbeat them into a in-person meeting or a phone call. Let them screen it first via text or a summary or a business plan. And then if they request it, you can follow up with an in-person meeting. I think public. You can always recognize the first timers because they're too secretive. And you can always recognize the experienced ones because they don't care. Once you've done these a few times, you realize how much execution difficulty and risk there is, and how hard it is to get people to listen to you and believe you. Eventually, you end up shouting your idea from the rooftops just in the hope that somebody will actually use the product. So you end up with the opposite problem. And if you do have one of those extremely rare ideas that if it is revealed and somebody else figures it out, that it will lose all its value, then it's not something you can execute on as a business. It's not a real idea. Most companies fail, and not fail in the fall apart sense, but fail to execute or fail to deliver or fail to realize their full potential because of interpersonal conflicts, either between the founders or between a founder and an investor. At the end of the day, it's people issues, which is surprising and ironic. I think one large misconception that disservices entrepreneurs is a lot of entrepreneurs think that they can raise angel money around niche or small ideas. They feel like, okay, I've carved out this little area for myself where there's not a lot of competition, and then I can have a $20 or $30 million exit, and so the angels will want to invest in that. And the reality is that this is what Keynes used to call a beauty contest, a Keynesian beauty contest. He described it in one of his books. And what it means is that as an investor, you're investing not just in the most beautiful company, but the company that's most likely to get selected in the next round. Because the real risk here is that a company runs out of money. Every company needs more money than I thought it did. So there's a lot of future financing risk. And because VCs will only fund companies that have potential large exits, that means angels over time will only fund companies that have potential large exits. Otherwise, they take too much of a risk of they fund a company and then no VC wants to touch it.